there'd be nothing left. So what we'll do
We're gonna
is
throw it on the low board, or are we just gonna drive it out?
two of them, 250 and then 600, hook them up, haul them in.
For years, Tony Beets has been the unstoppable force of Gold Rush, a man built from grit, fire, and pure determination. Fans came to know him as the Viking of the Yukon, a living legend who turned frozen wilderness into rivers of gold. But behind his fierce persona and booming laugh lies a story that's recently taken a heartbreaking turn. Now, at this stage in his life, Tony has finally spoken out, and what he's revealed has left fans across the world in shock. Tony's journey has never been easy. From his humble beginnings in the Netherlands to carving out an empire in the unforgiving lands of the Klondike, he's faced countless battles, against nature, against time, and sometimes against himself. Yet no challenge has shaken him quite like the tragedy he's now confirmed. For a man who built his life on strength and resilience, this news cuts deeper than any loss of gold ever could. When word first began to spread, many fans hoped it was just another rumor, another exaggerated story from reality TV headlines. But Tony's own words have now made it painfully real. The Viking has broken his silence, and what he shared is nothing short of devastating. As we look back at his rise to fame, his family's role in his empire, and the unbreakable spirit that made him a television icon, one truth remains: Tony Beets' latest revelation isn't just about loss. It's about the price of living a life defined by risk, love, and legacy. Long before Tony Beets became one of the most recognizable faces on Gold Rush, he was just a hard-working kid from a small village in the Netherlands. Born in 1959, Tony grew up in a modest farming family where the days were long and the work was backbreaking. He learned early that nothing in life came easy. As a teenager, he was known for his restless energy and determination to escape the limits of small-town life. He wanted something more, something big enough to match his ambition. In the early 1980s, that dream carried him halfway across the world to Canada. He arrived in the Yukon with little more than a few dollars and a fierce will to succeed. The mining life was rough, endless cold, long hours, and unforgiving conditions. But Tony wasn't afraid of hard work. He started at the bottom, working as a heavy equipment operator, slowly learning every detail of the mining business. Where others saw frozen ground and failure, Tony saw opportunity. By the time the world first saw him on Gold Rush, Tony had already earned a reputation as one of the most fearless miners in the Klondike. He was loud, honest, and completely unapologetic, qualities that quickly made him a fan favorite. Viewers admired his no-nonsense attitude, his fiery temper, and the way he pushed his crew to their limits. He wasn't just mining for gold. He was mining for legacy. His success didn't come from luck, but from decades of sacrifice, sweat, and sleepless nights. Tony's mining empire expanded rapidly, with his wife Minnie by his side managing the business and his children, Monica, Kevin, and Mike following in his footsteps. The Beets family became the beating heart of Gold Rush. Their story wasn't just about striking it rich. It was about family unity, hard work, and survival in one of the toughest industries on Earth. But fame came with its own pressures. As the show grew in popularity, the Beets family found themselves constantly under the public eye. Every argument, every mistake, every setback was magnified for millions to see. And yet Tony remained true to himself. Tough, proud, and brutally honest. He often reminded viewers that mining wasn't about glamour or fame. It was about grit. "If you want gold," he once said, "you've got to dig for it. Nobody's going to hand it to you." Behind that iron will, however, few knew the emotional toll that life in the mines took on him. The work was relentless, the stakes enormous, and the risks ever-present. Machinery broke down, weather delayed operations. And despite years of experience, every season carried the same uncertainty. Would they strike gold, or would the ground give them nothing? Still, Tony's unshakable spirit made him the symbol of the show. He embodied the pioneer spirit that drew people to the Yukon more than a century ago. But while his outer toughness inspired others, deep down, Tony was carrying burdens that no one could see, challenges that extended far beyond the gold fields. For years, fans admired his resilience without realizing how much personal pain lay behind that hardened exterior. As time went on, tragedy began to touch the Beets family in ways that even Tony couldn't control. And while the Viking of the Yukon had faced countless storms in his life, nothing could prepare him for the heartbreak that would come next. Tony Beets built an empire from dirt and determination, but in doing so, he also learned the cruel truth of life in the mining world. Every ounce of gold comes at a price, and sometimes that price is far greater than anyone expects. Behind Tony Beets's roaring laugh and fearless attitude lay the true foundation of his life, his family. While Gold Rush showed viewers the tough, rugged miner barking orders across the claim, those close to him knew that his greatest treasure was not gold, but the people who worked beside him every day. His wife, Minnie Beets, had been his anchor since their teenage years. Together they built not just a business, but a life of relentless hard work and shared sacrifice. When Tony left the Netherlands for Canada, Minnie followed him, leaving behind everything familiar. She believed in his dream even when others didn't. While Tony worked in the fields and mines, Minnie handled the finances, managed payroll, and made sure their growing family stayed grounded. Their bond was built on mutual respect and an unspoken understanding that failure simply wasn't an option. "She's the real boss," Tony often joked on camera, and fans knew he meant it. Their children, Monica, Kevin, and Mike, grew up immersed in the gold mining life. From an early age, they learned to operate heavy machinery, read the ground, and handle the unpredictable nature of the business. The Beets family quickly became fan favorites on Gold Rush because they represented something rare in modern television: genuine, hardworking people who didn't sugarcoat life's difficulties. They fought, they cursed, they laughed, but through it all, they stuck together. However, what viewers didn't always see was how difficult the mining world could be on a family. Long seasons away from home, brutal weather, and constant financial pressure weighed heavily on everyone. Tony, who appeared indestructible to the public, carried the burden of keeping everything running. He was not just a boss or a father, he was the pillar holding up an entire operation. The stress at times was overwhelming. In interviews, Tony occasionally revealed glimpses of that hidden strain. He admitted that the pressure of keeping the business alive often left little room for rest or emotional reflection. "You can't slow down," he once said. "You stop, you lose. And if you lose, everyone depending on you loses, too." That relentless drive made him successful, but it also came with a cost. Fans of Gold Rush remember the Beets family's highs and lows on screen, the triumphs of massive gold finds and the heartbreak of seasons that yielded little. But behind the scenes, real-life struggles began to unfold, private challenges that were far more painful than any mechanical failure or bad mining season. One of the most heartbreaking moments in the Beets family's history came years ago, when Tony and Minnie faced a devastating personal tragedy that they rarely spoke about publicly. The loss shook the entire family and left a scar that time could never fully heal. For a man known for his toughness, Tony's silence about this pain spoke volumes. Those who knew him best said that it changed him, it softened him, even if he never showed it outwardly. Despite everything, Tony refused to let tragedy destroy his spirit. Instead, he turned his pain into purpose, pushing forward with even greater determination. He often said that his family's struggles were what gave him strength, not weakness. "You take the hits," he once remarked, "and you keep moving." That's what life is about. As the seasons of Gold Rush went on, fans could see subtle changes in Tony. He became more reflective, sometimes taking moments on camera to look out across the frozen Yukon landscape, lost in thought. The man who once seemed unstoppable was beginning to show signs of the weight he carried, both as a miner and as a father. Through it all, his family remained his greatest support. They stood beside him in every storm, proving that no amount of gold could ever replace love and loyalty. But as Tony would soon reveal, even the strongest families can only bear so much before tragedy strikes again, and this time, it would shake the Beets family in ways no one saw coming. For years, Tony Beets seemed like the kind of man who could survive anything. He had faced financial ruin, brutal weather, broken machinery, and the harshest land on earth, and somehow he always came out on top. But even a man known as the King of the Klondike can't mine his way out of heartbreak. The tragedy that eventually struck the Beets family wasn't about gold or business. It was about something far more personal and far more devastating. The Beets family's story took a heartbreaking turn that few fans knew about until Tony himself began to speak about it. Years ago, before their fame on Gold Rush, Tony and Minnie experienced the unimaginable, the loss of one of their children, their beloved daughter Jasmine. She passed away as an infant, just months old. The pain of that loss was something the family rarely discussed, but it remained a silent shadow over their lives. For Tony, it was the one thing he could never fix. The one challenge he couldn't overcome through sheer willpower. In a rare and emotional moment, Tony once opened up about the loss, saying, "You can lose gold, you can lose machines, you can even lose time, but losing a child that never leaves you." Those close to him said that after Jasmine's passing, something in Tony changed. He became more guarded, more focused on work, as if the endless grind of mining was the only way to keep his pain buried beneath the surface. Minnie, his lifelong partner, stood by him through it all. She carried her own heartbreak quietly, choosing to focus on their surviving children and the family's future. Together they found strength in building the life they had always dreamed of, one rooted in hard work and resilience. But even decades later, the memory of their daughter remained close to their hearts. As Gold Rush grew in popularity, fans admired Tony's toughness, but few knew the emotional weight he carried behind the scenes. Every time he spoke about family, every time he emphasized hard work and perseverance, it came from a place shaped by loss. His drive wasn't just about finding gold. It was about making sure his family's struggles hadn't been in vain. Then, in recent years, tragedy struck again. News began to spread among fans that one of Tony's children, Monica Beets, had been dealing with heartbreaking personal challenges of her own. During filming, she had suffered a miscarriage, an event she bravely spoke about later. For Tony and Minnie, it brought back old wounds they thought had long healed. Seeing their daughter experience that same pain reignited emotions they had kept buried for years. Tony, usually so stoic, was visibly shaken. He later said that watching his children face life's hardest moments was far worse than enduring his own. "You can't protect them forever," he admitted quietly. "You raise them strong, but sometimes life still hits them hard." For the Beets family, this renewed heartbreak served as a painful reminder of life's fragility, even for those who appear invincible. Fans began to notice a softer, more reflective side of Tony in later seasons of Gold Rush. While he still commanded his crew with authority, there was a deeper sense of gratitude in the way he spoke about his family and the life they had built together. Despite the grief, Tony's resilience became an inspiration. He continued to work, not because he needed more gold, but because it was his way of honoring the ones he had lost. "You can't quit when it gets hard," he told one interviewer. "That's when you dig deeper, literally and figuratively." The tragedies Tony Beets has endured have not defined him, but they have shaped him. They transformed the fiery Viking of the Yukon into something more, a man who understands that life's true riches aren't buried in the ground, but in the love and memories of those who stand beside you. And though the pain never fully fades, Tony's courage in facing it has shown the world that even the toughest men can have the kindest hearts. After decades of building an empire out of the frozen Yukon soil, Tony Beets has finally slowed down, just enough to look back at the life he's lived and the losses he's endured. At 65, the man once known only for his booming voice, wild beard, and unbreakable spirit has begun to open up in ways fans never expected. And when he finally spoke about the tragedies that shaped his life, it wasn't with anger or regret, but with the raw honesty of a man who's learned what truly matters. In a quiet interview away from the roaring machinery of his mining sites, Tony confirmed what many fans had feared. The pain of losing his daughter Jasmine never left him. Decades later, it still lingers, shaping every decision he makes, every ounce of effort he puts into his work. You never get over it, he said softly. You just learn to live with it. The mind keeps me busy, but the heart doesn't forget. He also addressed the more recent heartbreak within the family, the emotional toll that came when his daughter Monica suffered a miscarriage. For Tony, it was a moment that brought back painful memories he thought he'd buried long ago. When I saw her go through that, he said, it was like reliving it all over again. You wish you could take the pain away from your kids, but life doesn't work like that. His voice, usually strong and commanding, carried a rare vulnerability. For fans who have followed Gold Rush from the beginning, this was a side of Tony Beets they had never seen before. The tough, outspoken Viking of the Yukon was showing the man behind the legend, a father, a husband, and a human being who had known deep sorrow. He admitted that mining, while demanding, had always been his way of coping with pain. Some people talk it out, he said. I dig. The ground listens. It doesn't talk back. Even as he continues to mine, Tony's priorities have shifted. He spends more time mentoring his children, passing down decades of hard-earned wisdom about life, not just gold. He reminds them constantly that wealth fades, but family endures. Minnie, ever the steady hand behind the scenes, remains his closest confidant. Together, they've weathered storms that would have broken most couples. Their bond, tested by time, tragedy, and triumph, has become the foundation of everything the Beets family stands for. These days, Tony has also spoken more about gratitude. He often tells fans that his success means little compared to the love he's been blessed with. Gold is gold, he said in one heartfelt moment. It shines, it glitters, but it doesn't hug you back. Family does, and that's what counts in the end. While fans were shocked by Tony's emotional admissions, they were also deeply moved. His words reminded the world that even the strongest among us carry silent battles. The Viking of the Yukon, once thought to be indestructible, revealed that strength isn't just about how much you can endure, but how openly you can face what breaks you. As Tony continues his work in the Yukon, he does so not just for gold, but for legacy. Every ounce he mines, every season he completes, is a tribute to the family that stood by him and the loved ones he's lost. And though time and tragedy have taken their toll, Tony Beets remains exactly what he's always been. A man who refuses to give up. In the end, his story isn't just about mining or fame. It's about love, loss, and the unbreakable human spirit. When Tony Beets finally confirmed the tragic news that fans had long whispered about, he also confirmed something far more powerful, that even in the face of unbearable pain, there is dignity in survival and beauty in never surrendering. Today, as the snow settles across the Yukon and the sun dips below the horizon, Tony Beets stands quietly beside the land that gave him everything and took just as much away. He no longer chases gold for glory. He does it for peace.